Hello and welcome to a brand new show. It's called The Debate. No points or prizes for guessing what we're going to be doing, chatting all things football. Okay, one thing that wasn't debated this morning, very obviously, was what my guests Leroy Rosenoir and Don Hutchison were going to wear. Guys!
Did you not get the memo? Did you not get it?
What memo?
Maroon.
Obvious.
Sorry, no memo for me. I'm going to be sat in between these two discussing all things Premier League. Now, the first question I want to ask you both.
Yep.
Okay. Arguably the biggest story to come out of the Premier League this season, maybe even bigger than Manchester City winning that title. Who is going to replace Arsene Wenger at Arsenal?
Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
I've got two names. I've got Max Allegri at Juve. He's done a wonderful job. They're winning Serie A's for fun. One a little bit more left field, and it's Eddie Howe at Bournemouth.
Wow.
I've watched Eddie Howe's teams play, especially Bournemouth, over the last couple of years, and he always plays on the front foot. He always, sets his team up very attacking to win games. He never tries to stay in games. I've seen it with the managers over the last 18 months. It's become a bit of a trend, actually, where managers in and around the foot of the table and teams that are mid-sector just sort of go, we'll stay in the game, we'll just try and get something, the last 20 minutes, we'll stay in the game for an hour. Eddie Howe tries to win games. And I could imagine him being the perfect fit for Arsenal.
Max Allegri, Eddie Howe. For Don, Leroy?
For me, even Joachim Löw, or I'd like to see Patrick Vieira get an opportunity. I think he's gone off and got his experience in the MLS. Obviously, he's an Arsenal legend, and he's the sort of player that Arsenal have been missing for all these years. So I think he'll be aware of just what Arsenal need.
You do know, Leroy, it's a manager, not a player.
By the way, look, let's talk about Eddie Howe.
He can't play anymore.
You're talking about Eddie Howe, by the way. Eddie Howe is going to play exactly the same sort of football that Arsene Wenger's been doing. You're talking about not shutting up shop when you needed to. Well, that's what Arsenal have been doing for the last, I don't know how many years.
So wouldn't that be a good
Arsene
fit?
Wenger is now moving on. Well, no, you get exactly the same. You need something totally different to what Arsene Wenger served up.
So let me ask you this, Leroy. Joachim Löw has been 12 years as Germany manager. Club football might be alien to him.
Well, look, the key is recruitment for Arsenal, to get the best players in. And where they are, in sixth place, remember they're in sixth place, and they're not competing with Man City, they're not competing with Liverpool or Man United. So recruitment is going to be key, and that's where Arsene Wenger has let himself down. He's got very good technical players, but you look at what's already there at Arsenal. Ozil signed a new 3-year contract. He needs to be kept happy. Mertesacker is going to be in the backroom staff. So it'll be parachuted into a system which suits him. And he knows where the best young players are.
I need to jump in there, Leroy. Arsenal's scouting network over the last few years hasn't been that great. No. So then they're going to appoint an international manager who doesn't need a scouting network because he only has to pick players that are German.
He's got a scouting.
Why?
Of course, he watches opposition teams. He knows what's going on around the world. He knows where the best players are
his
around the world.
Don will watch German players. What
Leroy talking rubbish yet again about Joachim Löw. What's he going to leave Germany for to go to Arsenal? Get Eddie Howe and give Eddie Howe time and just say and take the pressure off and tell the media, by the way, if you do appoint Eddie Howe, we don't expect you to win the title in a year. We want you to rebuild our football club like Arsene Wenger done when he left Grand Passate to come in Arsenal. No one had heard of Arsene Wenger when he came to England.
No.
The Arsenal players didn't. We work with a lot of Arsenal players. Ian Wright, they'll all tell you.
Eddie Howe's experience of management, when he left Bournemouth, he went to Burnley, he's too far away from home, had to go back to Bournemouth. He's very comfortable at Bournemouth. He's not someone who's going to be, wants to be outside
Arsenal's
his
not
comfort
too far away
zone.
from Bournemouth.
He'll be outside his comfort zone in terms of Arsenal. And by the way, the reaction you would get if Eddie Howe was appointed manager of Arsenal would be one of absolute disappointment from Arsenal supporters. I mean, you mentioned Max Allegri, and I totally understand that. Patrick Vieira, absolute hero at the football club. Joachim Löw, international manager who won the World Cup. This is where Arsenal need to get to, and they're not going to get there by going to a side, a manager who's managed in the bottom half of the Premier League table at best. They need to get the best that they can get, and Eddie Howe isn't amongst them.
Hasn't he done a good job in rebuilding Bournemouth? He's managed that club without spending loads of money. I thought the record signing might be Nathan Ake, £20 million. Arsenal are going to need to start again from the bottom. And the reason I say that, there's one manager who I'm sure we'll discuss, Luis Enrique. In the preliminary talks with him, it's reported that he wanted something like 200 million just on the transfer kitty.
Well, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And let's talk about Eddie Howe and his rebuilding job. He hasn't rebuilt a lot, to be fair. And you talk about Nathan Ake. There's not many players who come through the door at Bournemouth. Jordan Ivor's come in. 15, 16 million, not been that successful. So the players he'd signed, Begovic, he's okay. He's still got the same core of players that he had when he came from the lower leagues.
But so isn't that testament to him?
Well, he needs someone who knows players around the world. Eddie Howe, you're talking about, Joachim Löw only knowing players from Germany. Eddie Howe only knows lower league players and players who are kind of like reserve team players at other clubs. That's not what Arsenal are looking for. They're looking at the best.
Or is that maybe, sorry, Don, or is that maybe he's had to shop in those areas because he didn't have the funds or the budget, the resources to go elsewhere?
Look, I cannot even see why Eddie Howe is on the radar in terms of Arsenal.
Well, it's Don's radar.
Bright young manager. Let me tell you where you're wrong with Luis Enrique. Not so much you in what he said when he said, I want £200 million.
Yeah.
He's way out. It's £1 billion. Let me tell you now, £200 million gets you nowhere near Liverpool.
So do you trust Eddie Howe with the £1 billion to spend on Arsenal?
Well, yes, because I agree with what Jonathan's saying. I think if you give Eddie Howe enough money, because as you're saying, listen, my perfect manager for Arsenal Football Club, which will never happen in a million years because it's too radical, would be Diego Simeone.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
that would be the one where it shakes the whole...
When you say too radical, in what way?
Because the turnover in playing staff would be too great. Because Mesut Ozil wouldn't want to play under him. Aaron Ramsey, questionable. A lot of their good players would be thinking double sessions, running sessions, hard work.
But you know, that's what they need. They need the manager to
exactly
go in,
what they
and
need.
if they don't want it, then move them out.
That's what
Arsenal need to move forward.
But you say move them out. Mesut Ozil just signed a new contract for 4 or 5 years on £350,000 a week. That's the problem. Arsene Wenger and Arsenal have got themselves in. That was the big debate when we were talking about Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil. And I've been saying for ages, if you're going to get rid of one, get rid of Mesut Ozil and keep Alexis Sanchez, because if you bring in Simeone in, he'd be the perfect player for him.
So let me just ask then, Don, if Luis Enrique's argument is similar to Diego Simeone's, just in a different way.
Well, I think their approach is different. Their style of football is different.
I think the idea that they're going to have to rebuild the squad, Luis Enrique's come out and saying it. And you're saying if Simeone comes in, that's what he's going to want to do.
I can imagine Simeone coming in, two-footed challenges, out, you're out. Enrique might just work with the squad of players that he's got. And he might be saying £200 million because I rate Aaron Ramsey. You know, Aubameyang's great. We've got Mkhitaryan. We've got good players, so I can build on that. If I get a goalkeeper and a centre half and a holding midfield player, we're not a million miles away from getting back into the Champions League.
Right, we quickly discussed. Leroy discussed Eddie Howe, who was your mention. Then he discussed maybe the merits of Joachim Löw. Don, I want to ask you about Max Allegri. I know you watch a lot of continental Europe football. What would he bring to Arsenal and the Premier League?
He'll bring a ruthlessness to Arsenal, which was what they need. I saw them last week in the Champions League semi-final. And he took a player off. Sorry, it wasn't the Champions League semi-final. It was the game against Napoli. Yeah. And he took Dybala off at half-time, who was their star player. And although Koulibaly scored in the last minute, and you could argue the result went against him, he's not afraid at half-time to make big calls. And their star player, Dybala, when it was 0-0, Max Allegri went, off you come, I'm going for a 0-0. And he got Mandzukic on, and he got defensive-minded players on the pitch. So exactly what Arsenal need, where they go, do you know, forget about the egos of Aaron Ramsey and forget about the egos of Mesut Ozil. I'm going to do what's right to get us back into the top four, and I'm going to do the correct things, as managers should, to get us closer to winning a title.
I'm going to say something there, Don. I agree with you. I'm not going to say it very often. I tell you, I agree with you.
What?
Max Allegri, Patrick Vieira, Luis Enrique, Joachim Löw, all ruthless.
Yep.
And exactly what Arsenal
need. Do we know if Vieira's ruthless yet?
Patrick Vieira is ruthless. You played against him. He is ruthless. That's why I've discounted Eddie Howe. And that's no disrespect to him. I think he's a very good manager. But what Arsenal need at the moment is someone's going to go in there and stamp their authority on those players. Now, if Mesut Ozil says, I don't want to do that, that's fine. You don't have to do that because we're going to get someone in who's going to do what I want to do. That's the problem with Arsenal. The players have done exactly what they've wanted to do. All those managers, top-class managers, but the one trait that Arsenal need is someone who's going to say, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it.
We know that.
Okay.
We know that, but does the board know that?
So let me throw a name in there. I want to do it the way that I want to do it.
Yeah.
He's on the verge of doing the double-double in Scotland. Why have neither of you two mentioned Brendan Rodgers?
I think it would be a good fit. I just don't think Brendan Rodgers would leave Celtic right here, right now for Arsenal. The state that they're in and the job that he's doing at Celtic, you know, he'll want to make Celtic into not so much a force in Europe because it's very difficult with the lack of money that he's got. But I think he'll want to achieve a couple of more things at Celtic. You know, as you said, he's up for the double treble list this year, and if he pulls it off, amazing job. But those are the type of managers the board at Arsenal should have their eyes on. These calibre of managers. When he took Liverpool to second and should have won the league, by the way, those are the managers where you're looking at CVs and you go, well, Brendan Rodgers is now a winner. It's proven now. Even though he's gone to Scotland, he's now a winner.
Does it count in Scotland, really? Come on, the level of football
it does.
I
think
does
it
it really count?
I heard a journalist say yesterday, I could have won the league, you know, if I was manager of Celtic. That's disrespectful. The job that he's doing, the recruitment that he's doing, he knows he's got no money. He's bringing loan players in from the likes of PSG. He's making Scott Brown a better player, who I've never really rated, and he's making Celtic into a force. Aberdeen and Rangers can't get nowhere near.
He's earned his stripes. Watford, Reading, Swansea.
Yeah.
Of course, he got the big job at Liverpool. Nearly took them to their first trophy, Premier League trophy in 20 odd years.
Should have done.
Maybe should have done. But he's gone to Scotland and he has been nothing short of phenomenal. Why should he not be considered alongside Love and Allegri and, as Don said, Eddie Howe?
Maybe he should be considered, but I still wouldn't give him the job. I just feel that Celtic is a club that is close to his heart. I think that he had an unbelievable advantage going to Scottish football, and yeah, he's won the treble and he's done it in a style which is synonymous with Brendan Rodgers. I don't see just Brendan Rodgers and Arsenal being a fit. I really can't see the two merging together. And you saying to me that Brendan Rodgers is going to bring a spine to the team and bring out the best in terms of competitiveness in that football team. That's just not the way he operates. And I don't see Arsenal moving forward under Brendan Rodgers. I do think he's a very good manager, but I can't see that being what Arsenal need. What Arsenal need at the moment is a tried and trusted man, and I'm not just saying manager, I think a man who they know is going to be strong and determined and ruthless. And Brendan Rodgers doesn't
that count out Patrick Vieira?
No, well, I said man. That's why I said man, not manager.
Yeah, but I don't know Patrick Vieira personally.
I'm looking at Brendan Rodgers and I'm thinking the job that he'd done at Liverpool was great. And people will argue, well, he didn't get them over the line. That's absolutely fine and it's a fair argument. But the style of football Liverpool were playing was a frightening team to watch. And you look at some of the players at Arsenal and you think, Aubameyang, Luis Suarez that he had. And you start looking at the players in and around that Liverpool team. There's a lot of players at Arsenal that he could work with and he could make them attractive. I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. Yeah. Clean sheets at the back and the goalkeeper.
Exactly, that's one thing Brendan Rodgers...
I get that,
absolutely.
But he might have learned. He might kick himself every night that we don't know. And Brendan Rodgers gone, if only I'd have bought a centre-half when I was at Liverpool. If only I'd have bought a top-class goalkeeper. We'd have got to a title. And that's, I would imagine, I've never been a manager, you have, I would imagine when you're getting things wrong on a small basis, that all them small margins make a huge deal. Yeah, absolutely massive. And they can take you to a title. I just wonder if he's not learned from those lessons now. And if he walks through the door at Arsenal, and that's why I'm leaning towards what Johnathan's saying, even though I still think Eddie Howe in the short term, I think it's not too radical. And that's why I would discount Simeone, because it's too radical. Play it, which just be throwing a bomb and then the
that's what they need, though.
No, we all know it's what they need, but Arsenal don't do it this way. So Eddie Howe, I would imagine, in the short term, would be a very, very good fit for the style of play that he wants to play and the players that he's got to work with.
This is the last thing I really want to say about this. Eddie Howe would want the job. Patrick Vieira would want the job.
Yep.
Why would Brendan Rodgers want the job? He's at Celtic. He's won the treble. He's an
Premier League.
absolute
The
god.
Premier League.
He's actually he's a god. Well, this was his dream job. Celtic is his dream job. Max Allegri at Juventus. What a side they are. Diego Simeone. You saw the lights, the team that he's got there. Why would they want to come to Arsenal in sixth place? And why not? Why not they be? Should they be setting their sights higher?
If that was the case, no one would manage.
Yeah, but should they be setting their sights higher? Because where have Arsenal dropped to? And people saying Arsenal, they've been linked with all these great men. 2 years ago, they could have got Pep. 2 years ago, they could have got Klopp.
Leroy, surely
Celtic
are not the epitome of football. I mean, Brendan Rodgers was a youth team coach at Chelsea. Why would Chelsea not be his dream job? If Antonio Conte leaves at the end of this season, like many people think he will.
Manchester's got ambition.
Yeah.
They've got ambition.
But that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I'll ask you one.
So far.
I'll ask you one. If Brendan Rodgers, as he's quoted saying this morning, he will come back to the Premier League. It might not be this year, it might not be the next. He's going to be a coach for the next 20 years. Is he going to get a bigger club coming back to the Premier League than Arsenal?
He must really get Chelsea. He's, as you said, he's got a background he's got a really good relationship with everybody he worked with at Chelsea. It's a club that he knows, a club where he's well respected. And so I think he would get. I think Chelsea would be a much better option for Brendan.
I just don't know. I just think with Chelsea's radar, I think they're always looking at massive names that will come in for a year
Simeone?
and a half. Yeah, exactly.
I know we've gone from Arsenal to Chelsea.
No, but that seems a fit because when you look at the style of play and what they produce, Arsenal are a nicey team, easy on the eye, always have been. Not against the sides that I played with the Vieira and Petits, of course, but of late over the last decade. And you go Chelsea and you go. Oh, some characters there.
Well, Jose
that's where Simeone would be a better fit for Chelsea than he would Arsenal.
Because Jose got him playing workmanlike. Antonio Conte has not been total flair. Yeah. It's been a lot of work.
It's how they do things, isn't it? It's how they do things. It's like, right, do Chelsea care if they break 100 points a season like Man City are going to do? No. They get more joy and more pleasure out of winning trophies and winning titles.
Okay, so there you have it. We've discussed 5 or 6 or maybe 7 and 8
Tell you what,
managers. I'm going to put you both on the spot now. You've got one choice each.
Brendan.
After everything was said.
No, Allegri, because he's a proven winner. He's won things at the very highest level.
Yeah, wouldn't disagree with that, but I'd go for Joachim Löw.
Joachim Löw. Thank you very much. Joachim Löw for Leroy, Rosenoir and Max Allegri there for Don Hutchison. Okay, when the Champions League started, not Champions League proper, early in August, who would have thought that Liverpool would be the last British team still in the tournament? Guys, the next question on the debate is simply this. Can Liverpool win the Champions League?
Look, of course they can win the Champions League. They're in a great position against Roma, and if they don't get to the final, I'll be very, very surprised. But I just think in the last few days, their chances of winning the Champions League have slightly diminished, in all honesty, because we were talking about last week about Salah. Does he play this weekend, against Stoke? And he played, and we were talking about the reason he keeps him in the side and he plays him is to keep momentum going. And they lost momentum at the weekend. He missed a couple of chances. All of a sudden, the headlines in the papers aren't Mo Salah is a god. Is that Mo Salah misses this and he misses that? And so they've lost a little bit of momentum. The injury to Oxlade-Chamberlain against Roma was the biggest. No, don't worry about the 2 goals that Roma scored late on. That injury to Oxlade-Chamberlain, because he was playing the best football I've seen Oxlade-Chamberlain play of his senior career. And I thought he just brought a different dimension to that Liverpool team. So that's a big problem. And when I was watching that game over the weekend, when Jordan Henderson was going, please don't be injured. Alexander Trent, please don't be injured. So in the last week, their chances have diminished. And we just heard today that the assistant manager is on gardening leave, or Buvac is on gardening leave. So there's things going on at Liverpool which could undermine their chances of winning the Champions League.
Don?
I wouldn't say undermine, and I wouldn't say they've lost momentum.
First question though, can Liverpool win?
Of course they can.
Will they win it?
Yeah. I think they can. They'll get through against Roma. I've got no doubt about that. I think they'll score in Rome, not a problem. And they'll probably, it might be a strange old scoreline. It might be 3-2 to someone, but they'll go through. They've got too much weapons. Watching the game at the weekend, I've been stunned over Jurgen Klopp's team selection over the last fortnight. Constantly playing Van Dijk, his best centre-half, constantly playing Mo Salah, one of the best players in the world at the moment. When you've got eyes and you've got designs on winning a Champions League final, which is looking as though it's going to be Real Madrid if they get past Bayern, I find it a real strange one that Jurgen Klopp's constantly picking those 2 players, because the first 2 players I would ever take out of Liverpool and say, not so much you need a rest, I get where you're coming from, you keep momentum, you keep playing, you keep at the top of your fitness levels, but if anything went wrong, and you talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Jordan Henderson picking up knocks. If anything went wrong to Mo Salah, and if anything went wrong to Van Dijk, then all of a sudden you're leaning massively towards Real Madrid.
So we just got to say, if the games in and around Roma, Liverpool were playing against Chelsea, who they've got this week, ironically, or Tottenham or Arsenal or Manchester United, and they're trying to get into that top 4. But when the last 2 teams they faced are the current bottom 2 teams in the Premier League, it does make you think, did he really need to play Van Dijk and Mo Salah?
No, I don't think he did. And it's just me. I've managed. And by the way, the stress, the game sometimes is the best part. The stress is during the week when you're in a situation, you're up to a big game, trying to keep players ticking over, trying to make sure that they're totally prepared for the game. And I can't imagine what it must be like going into the second leg.
Why would Jurgen not have spotted that? Because that is blatantly obvious. That's a schoolboy error to constantly keep playing Van Dijk and Salah.
I think it's a lack of trust in the other players in the squad as well. By the way, you've got to remember that you play Van Dijk because Van Dijk makes a massive difference to that back 4. You play Salah because...
It's strange when he rested Lovren.
I know, but...
It's like if you're going to play someone and play them into form, you'll play Lovren.
But he's still trying to win the game. He still wants to get the top 4
I get that.
done and dusted.
I get that.
But he doesn't trust Lovren. He doesn't trust Solanke. We've seen what Solanke's like. Hasn't scored a goal.
You say he doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust him against Stoke, but he's going to trust him against Roma, in Rome. That's the problem. It's a little bit contradictory in what he's doing. You're resting the centre-half and you got to tell you what, we'll rest Lovren because we're not sure because Peter Crouch is playing, but then we'll play him in Rome.
Now, I know that he hasn't started with Andrew Robertson at left-back and Trent Alexander-Arnold at right-back in those games against Stoke and West Brom, but is it the importance of Van Dijk in that Liverpool team, not only to the full-backs, but to carry us behind him, to whoever he plays alongside at centre-half, whoever plays in front of him? Liverpool look like a completely different unit unit when Virgil van Dijk's in the
Yeah,
team.
and if something happens within the game, Liverpool can sometimes fall apart. They haven't done it too often with Van Dijk. You see, there's a moment within the game, you've seen Liverpool throughout this season. People say they've had loads of clean sheets, but there's also been moments within the game where Lovren has made a mistake and they fall apart. And that's what Van Dijk brings, a calmness. And look, Karius is all of a sudden looked a much better goalkeeper with Van Dijk in front of him. So I think that's a reason why. I think the other reason why is because there's so many games. As a manager, sometimes, and I think Don would vouch for this, sometimes you use games to keep fit. Yeah. You know, you just use training just to tick over as a warm down, as to just to get the players together to discuss what's happened, to plan what's going to go on in the next game. And so I think he's tried to be clever, which is needed to be with a small squad, and use the games as a fitness exercise, saying, look, you're going to come off after an hour. You know, James Milner, you'll come after. You know, Firmino, you're going to come off. And he's done it in a kind of structured way, his substitutions. But it's been fingers crossed time.
It's been fingers crossed, Don. If I lean on the side of Jurgen Klopp here and I say what he's ensured over these last few weeks, Roma, or you had West Brom, Roma, Stoke, Roma, is that the intensity levels from his team selections hasn't changed, in that he's been willing to play his big players.
Yeah, I get all that, and you know, when Jurgen Klopp first come into the Premier League, he said, I'm going to play heavy metal football. And his side have been great to watch, and they're always great when they're on the front foot. Liverpool are not the type of side, under Jurgen especially, that like to just keep the ball for possession's sakes and have 60, 70, 80% of the ball. They like to get the ball forward. Firmino's a player that's just gone under the radar. He's just signed a new 5-year deal this morning. So it's great for Liverpool fans. And then you think of Mane, and you think of Oxlade-Chamberlain, you think of Salah, and you think of Jordan Henderson. Everything right here, right now, is unbelievable for Liverpool. Naby Keita's going to come in as someone who's a real player from Leipzig. And then with one or two additions, you know, you look at the performance of Alisson last week against Liverpool. That could have been 10 without him. You look at the performance of Oblak, the goalkeeper against for Atletico Madrid against Arsenal. If you get this quality of goalkeeper in, and then maybe one more centre half, even though I'm not sold on another one, because I think Joe Gomez could be brilliant. And you start thinking, well, that back four, if Trent played at right back and Joe Gomez and Van Dijk and Robertson, that's good enough. And Naby Keita coming into that midfield, they're losing Emre Can to Juve, which is a big loss. And then going forward, you think that 11 and that squad, surely, in my opinion, unless City just go mental and spend another £1 billion, that Pep
which they can,
which he did. He joked about this morning. He went, I might bring 2 in and spend £1 billion. I'm thinking, who's costing £500 million these days? But you never know. And I'm thinking Liverpool next season could be a real force.
You heard it first here. Neymar and Messi to Manchester City. Just quickly, Don, the two teams that Liverpool could face, either of them in the final, if they get to the final. Real Madrid take a 2-1 lead back to the Bernabeu. Is there anything in that Bayern Munich side, in that squad, that makes you feel there could be an upset?
No, just because of the amount of injuries they've had. Going forward, you know, Lewandowski was quiet the other week. He's a player that's been touted heavily of going to Real Madrid. Robin got an injury. Frank Ribery got one as well. Mats Hummels at the back got an injury. Boateng's struggling as well. So you look throughout the side, and Bayern are a very, very good side. You know, FC Hollywood are just unbelievable in the way they do things. They'll never sell players, you know, just for the sake of bringing in money. If they don't want to sell Lewandowski to Real Madrid, then they won't go. But I just think they've got too many injuries against the Real Madrid side with Ronaldo and Casemiro, Kroos, Modric, even Bale or Isco. They've got goals in them, Real Madrid. I can only see Real Madrid going to the final. I'm not sure on the scoreline, but I can only see them going to the final against Liverpool.
I mean, for style of play, would Liverpool rather play Real Madrid in the final or Bayern Munich?
Real Madrid. I honestly think they would rather play Real Madrid. Real Madrid will give you a chance. The only problem is, you know, we're talking about Mo Salah and the Ballon d'Or. There's that guy called Ronaldo. It just seems when the big games come, we talk about finals, he wants to turn up. He wants to be the main man. He'll be aware of Mo Salah, by the way, and he'll be just doing it. He'll have 10 abs by the time he finishes deal with
his abs will have abs.
His abs will have abs. But that's the problem. He will turn up. Those players, you talk about, yeah, they have weaknesses at the back, but one thing they have, and talk about experience, they have experience of knowing how to win in the big games. And that's why I think Real Madrid will get to the final. I really do hope, in terms of British football, in terms of the Premier League, that Liverpool get to the final and get a result. But they'll be underdogs. They'll be underdogs.
Real Madrid are going for 3 Champions Leagues on the spin. Yeah. It's a very hard one, and it's where you need a sort of tactics board, and you look at it and you think, right, how can Liverpool beat Real Madrid if that's going to be the final, or Bayern? And you think, well, Bayern's strong players are David Alaba at left back and Joshua Kimmich at right back. They're strong players, great players going forward, but defensively these two kids are sound. And you look at Real Madrid and you think, Marcelo, going forward, unbelievable.
Amazing.
Completely off the cuff. As a defender, hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. Can't defend to save his life. No. Watch him, Lee. Watch him. Honestly, for the goal that they conceded the other week, he was tying his laces in the corner flag. The 4 or 5 Real Madrid players actually had to run past him because he's like a Cafu. He's a player that just wants to go forward and express himself, and technique-wise, he's frightening. But if you think of Mo Salah, 1v1, there's only one winner. Yeah. And you think of Mane up against Carvajal, which would be the better battle because both of them are absolute rockets, by the way. They're two of them are athletes. And then where Liverpool might fall short, as you look at that three-man midfield, playing against Modric, Casemiro and Kroos, there might not be a better three in world football.
No, there isn't.
So the likes of Milner, Henderson, and it was Oxlade-Chamberlain have now got a job on to try and match those three. So it makes for a great game. But as you're saying, it wouldn't surprise you if Real Madrid beat Liverpool 1-0 and Ronaldo scored the winner. Exactly. He's that type of player.
Let's just look at how important this Champions League run is for Liverpool, the bigger picture. It's not just a potential final. It's the kind of players moving forward for Project Klopp or Project Liverpool that they can start attracting the world's best. And when you look at the Premier League, you say Manchester City and Manchester United, Liverpool now put themselves as a real reckoning, a real option alongside those greats.
Well, City now are rewriting their history, aren't they? Liverpool have got it in abundance. They've got one of the best histories alongside Man United in world football. So if Liverpool go to 6 Champions Leagues, and then in the summer you can use that and you go, we are going places. We won the Champions League last year. We're trying to defend the title. We're going to go close to Man City. And as you said, you get Alisson or Oblak in, and you break a world record fee for a goalkeeper because they've done it with Van Dijk. And you go, right, Liverpool right now want to be at the top table because they're spending 70 on Van Dijk. If they go another 70 on a goalkeeper and Naby Keita's coming through the door, then all of a sudden you go, is there much left for Jurgen Klopp to try and achieve in terms of bringing players in? Because they're nearly there. Obviously, getting to titles and trophies is the main thing, but standard of players, my word, if he gets those calibre of players in, they're going places.
You're absolutely right, Don, in terms of getting those calibre players in. But one thing I would disagree with, earlier you said that Liverpool, what a team, what a squad. I would say, what a team. I think their team is as good as Man City's, but I think their squad isn't as good as Man United's. It isn't as good as Chelsea's. It isn't as good as Tottenham's.
Is that a money thing? Is that a time thing?
Well, I think what Klopp is waiting for the right players. It's interesting waiting for Van Dijk just to spend the money on
and
Van
vindicated
Dijk.
by his performances.
Naby Keita, obviously coming through. Don said absolutely wonderful player. They need a goalkeeper. They need another centre half. I feel they need another midfield player, and I think they need another striker. That's 4 players.
All right.
And you're talking about, I think they need to spend 300 million on 4 players.
Take some of the players though on the fringes. Grujic is a real player who's on loan to Cardiff. You got Nathaniel Klein.
With Emre Can now going to Juventus, that's left the door open for Marco.
But there'll be players they need to get rid of. They need to get Sturridge out. They need to get Solanke out. They need to get. I think maybe
Solanke's harsh. He's just had his first season.
Solanke's a young player, but maybe he needs to go out and play. I'm not saying they write him off, but he needs to go out and play. I think Lovren is a liability. I'm not sure Karius will be happy being number 2 on the bench now. He might have to move on. So there'll be some, not deadwood, but there'll be some players they need to move out and just replace with better quality for their squad to be at the level it needs to be to challenge for the Premier League.
Leroy's just said the odd $300 million. I'm not sure if you've got that under the sofa.
Not on me, no.
300 million for 4 players, averaging £75 million a player. What order? Right, so if Liverpool are going to buy a striker, a central midfielder, a goalkeeper and a centre-half, what order? Goalkeeper first for you?
100% a goalkeeper. Even though Karius has got the potential, and don't forget the job that David De Gea went in when he went into Man United, and I think Fergie was quoted saying he's like a boy at the minute, he'll grow into a man, and he's certainly done that. He's probably the best goalkeeper in the world. But if I look at Liverpool, and we were talking about Brendan Rodgers and Jurgen Klopp, their managerial styles, it's all about scoring over 100 goals.
Yeah,
it's how many goals are you going to concede? And Arsenal the other night against Atletico Madrid could have won the game 5 or 6-1, and they didn't. They walked away with a 1-1 draw. That's the difference when goalkeepers are pulling off big saves. And in the very big games, you look at the Liverpool-Man United game when De Gea was pulling off saves left, right and centre. And these guys at the back, where you've got a world-class centre-half in Van Dijk, and whoever partners him alongside him, might be Gomez, and might go out and buy another one. Koulibaly at Napoli's a real brilliant centre-half that could go right to the very top. And I would imagine the top 3 at the moment, you've got to leave them alone. If you're being picky and you're playing fantasy football, you could try and get Cavani out of PSG and go, right, you're the 9. Firmino's clever enough to play as a 10, Coutinho like. Then all of a sudden you're building a squad and and that's where the squad...
Will Cavani give you what Firmino does, because I think he's quite unique.
Cavani's a workaholic, though.
Yeah.
But and listen, these are fantasy numbers, but I'm thinking if you're asking me...
Well, Leroy's give you 300 million to spend.
Well, spend it on Oblak. Spend 300 on Oblak.
All I'll say, you're absolutely right about Oblak, because you look at Man City, I know they talk about Walker, but the man who's transformed Man City and he's made them confident in the way is Ederson. Ederson has transformed the way that Man City plays.
Isn't that
Man
for
City
the way
still
he plays,
plays,
not him being a shot stopper?
No, because you get to the one-on-one with him, and by the way, you think, oh, he's going to save it. By the way, sometimes doesn't even get to a one-on-one because his positional plays, he's at 15 yards outside the box playing as a sweeper, so he never gets to that situation.
There's probably not a lot of difference in terms of football and ability from Ederson to Bravo. You know, there might be a little bit of a percentage, but when you watched Man City last season, every time someone went through on goal, you thought, goal.
Yeah.
Now, centre forwards, midfield players, wide players are going one-on-one with Ederson. You're thinking, keeper will save this. That's the difference.
That's what Liverpool need to do.
So, guys, we've just debated the fortunes of Liverpool. Liverpool have been given £300 million to spend by Leroy, and they're going to spend it all on a goalkeeper, says Dom. Okay, the last topic we're going to speak about now is Manchester United. Now, the chances are they're going to finish second in the Premier League.
Yeah.
They're in the FA Cup final, Don. Have Manchester United had a good season?
Yes, but it's just a conundrum where you think, yes, they've had a good season because they're going to finish in second. Yes, Jose could come away with a trophy, which is great. So they've got Champions League football and an FA Cup in the bag if they get it against Chelsea. But the style of play still worries me. And I know it's all about winning. I totally get that. You know, if you're playing average football but you take yourself to titles, that's fine. But Pep's ripping up the book now on how the game should be played in the Premier League. So he's taken Man City to another level where he's breaking all the records. He's going to break well over 100 goals for the second season on the spin. He's going to take them over 100 points. All the stats are there for City just to go and rip this Premier League up. Now Jose, his neighbour, if he's going to play park the bus type football and football where you're going to grind and you're going to try and get results and nick a point here and nick 3 there, they ain't going to wash in the Premier League because City are just going 3. Look at teams in a headlock and just go bang, bang, bang.
It always makes me laugh. The headlock.
Favourite one. But you just get teams like West Ham at the weekend. I mean, it was 4 going on 8 or 10 because they just keep the ball so well. And there's always, you know, I've seen Van Gaal come at Man United and they try to play this total football, but they do it in a way where you go, all right, it's total football, but it's very boring. Yeah. Pep doesn't do that. He goes total football, into midfield, into strikers, goals.
Leroy, is it a case of style over substance? Is that what's irking the Manchester United fans around the world? Shouldn't they just be happy that their team's winning and finish second? Or should they really be bothered about the manner that United are getting their results?
It's interesting because the question is, if Man United have a good season? You look at where they are on the table, and Don's right, they're in the FA Cup final. The answer is yes. But I suppose United are like a 3-course meal at the moment. You go out expecting 3 courses, you just get the middle course. You don't get your starter and you don't get your pudding.
So it's not a 3-course meal?
It's not a 3-course meal. Because when you watch them...
1-course meal? You're paying the season ticket at Man United, you're on a 1-course meal.
The point I'm making, you're just totally unsatisfied when you watch them play, even though they win the game. As a Man United fan, especially when, you know, I sit with a Man United fan most weekends watching the game. He's going, Man City comes on, he walks out. It's like, I can't take it, they're so good. You watch Man United and you have to take it. So the point I'm trying to make is they have had a successful season. There is no doubt they've had a successful season because when Jose Mourinho goes to that board meeting, he says, look, this is where we are. We're second in the league. We're the FA Cup. Remember, we finished 6th last year. We qualified. That's what you wanted me to do. So from everything that they wanted to do within those walls of Man United, they've been successful. But when you're a Man United fan, watching them week in, week out, you are totally unsatisfied, and it's compounded by Man City.
For the last 2 years under Jose, we're having this conversation where you go, yeah, if they win the Europa League and they're in the Champions League, they've had a successful season. There's always a what if. So if they win the FA Cup, they've had a good season to finish second. What if they don't win the FA Cup and they finish second?
Well, they've still had a good season because he's got them into the Champions League. Yeah, but that from their perspective, from the Man United...
Man United, you can't use that Arsenal tool anymore. Let's just finish top 4.
Let me just jump in there, Leroy, just to add a little bit of context and colour to the argument. Jose has been backed by the board. Lindelof, £30 million, didn't play for the better part of the season. Bailly was £40 million, depending on who you ask. It was a bit of a coup getting Amanda Matic from Chelsea.
Yeah.
Another £40 million. Sanchez,
Pogba,
massive
Lukaku.
wages. Lukaku, 80 million. Pogba, 80 million. There's about £300 million spent there. Shouldn't they be seeing and setting their sights higher than second? And second going on fourth, by the way, because Man City have run away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be. They should be challenging Man City. They should be closer to Man City. Absolutely no doubt about it. But I don't understand why Man United fans moan about the style of football, because this is what Mourinho does. You know, he's not going to
keep doing that, Lee. Not what Pep's doing.
But he's not going to change. Jose Mourinho has been doing this for many, many years. Why of all season in one season of Pep is he going to? He's not going to change. So if you're not going to win the title, they're going to grind out the title. He's going to go and spend big money on.
He didn't do that.
He didn't
do that at Real Madrid when he's trying to grind the Real Madrid players when Pep was ripping it up at Barcelona. Now he's got exactly the same problem. So the attitude from the manager needs to change. Because, as Johnathan said, when you're constantly buying the standard of players that Man United have got, who have got a worldly squad, by the way, or a worldly 11, you know, what Pep could do if he was managing Man United, he'd probably have them 16 points clear. So now Jose's got to look at himself and go, right, what can I do? If I'm looking in the mirror, what can I do? Because if I keep grinding, I ain't getting the best out of Paul Pogba.
Do you know what Jose be thinking of doing? He's got to make sure that in the head-to-heads, because that's what he concentrates on, the big games. Once against, he's got to win those instead of trying to draw those games. His attitude, I mean, that's what killed off his season. That performance against Liverpool, we were sat together watching that game, and we know that it kind of killed all that momentum that the Man United fans had, because they had a very good start of the season. They were scoring 4-3, not in the style of Man City, but they were scoring goals. Lukaku was scoring goals. All of a sudden, he left Lukaku isolated up front against Liverpool, and everybody's going, oh no, we're not going to get that from Jose. And it lost all United season. I think lost momentum from that point. So what Jose has got to change, and what he will change, is those head-to-head games, how he approaches them, not just wanting to come out with a point or maybe going to win those games.
He has always focused on those games, Don. Always focused on making sure he doesn't lose those games. Yeah. But whilst he had one eye on the battle with the top 4, 5, 6 teams, they've managed to lose 6 times this season, and not just only to the likes of City and Spurs and Chelsea. They've lost to West Brom. They've lost to Huddersfield. They've also lost to Newcastle this season.
I know. I mean, you're right. I mean, you can't look at Jose and look at the squad that he's building and go, it's going places. I think needs a little bit of time, because when you mention the amount of money that Jose spent and you go in and around £300 to £400 million, there was £500 million spent between, you know, David Moyes, Van Gaal, and then closer to £1 billion by the time Jose took over. Yeah. So at what point now can you stop saying, I need more money? Because all managers need money. I get that. Pep's had it at Man City. I totally get that. But what Pep's doing with the players that he's got, he's improved every single one of them. And you look at Jose and you go, right, what's Alexis Sanchez going to be like next season? Because he's a real player. Can you get the best out of Paul Pogba and stop arguing with the likes of us when we'll say, and I've said it for ages, haven't watched Paul Pogba at Juve for years, he's better in a 3. Then Jose goes stubborn and goes, no, I'll play him in a 2. Then Pogba gets interviewed a fortnight ago and goes, I can't keep putting these performances in a 2, I've got to play in a 3. So come on, Jose, go on the front foot and start attacking teams.
So going back to when we were speaking about Luis Enrique asking Arsenal for £200 million as a transfer kitty, Manchester United have spent £300 million on five players and definitely £200 million on 3.
The best managers and all good managers, the first thing they should ask at every start of the new season is, can I have some more money? That's the first question they should ask.
Is that what a manager does, is it?
Well, and I wish I'd learnt that, because I wanted to, as a young coach, you think, I can coach these players to be better. But you cannot, you can only work with the best that you can get. And now the first question you should ask is, can I have more? If they say no, then you say, OK, then I'll work. But you have to try and get the best players through the door. Pep's going to do it by the next year. He's won it by an absolute country. Klopp will do it.
Leroy,
and Mourinho will do it. And so it's no different. You know, just because Man United did it. Man United, the biggest club in the world.
But should be asking. If you do it and you win the Premier League, you can always go again and knock on the chairman's door and get more money.
From Mourinho's point of view, to come back to the question, has this been a successful season from when Man United were under Van Gaal, under David Moyes? Well, no, it has been.
No, factually, you can look at it and do what Jose's doing. Hang on, we finished 7th, 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th. So yes, finishing second with a successful season. I don't buy that. Not where Manchester United are. They should be
well, you should be buying it because Man City down the road are that much better than them.
Yeah, no, hang on. They're that much better in terms of how they're playing, right? In terms of playing staff, there'd be a lot of players that are playing for Man United that were getting Pep's first 11, by the way, if you'd done a combined 11.
Let me just jump in there, Don, just quickly. If Pep had the current Manchester United team squad, would they be top of the Premier League?
Yes.
Well, that's interesting because I had a discussion with someone about could Pogba play for Pep? And the answer was no.
No, come on.
Paul Pogba could not play like David Silva does, De Bruyne does, like Fernandinho does in that Man City midfield because he has no discipline. Those players, although they're fantastic players, there is a definite structure that Pep plays with. And we were having this discussion yesterday. I mean, it's amazing. We thought about it. Pogba is an unbelievable talent, unbelievable player. But you have to just go and play with three, left of three, and go and play. He couldn't play with any structure. So if you ask me, with that squad, Lukaku up front, no. Lukaku is this goal scorer, but his movement's not great. He's improved in terms of holding his ball up. So you could Pep make that squad? No, he'd have to make changes, that Man United squad, to get them to win the Premier League title.
Very quickly on Pep, if you're talking about those individuals, he would make Paul Pogba into a better player. He would give him structure. That's my point. And when you look at the season and you go, have they a successful one? It's a what if again. It's exactly. Hang on, very quick. It's the same as last year when you go. Everyone's talking, going, have they had a good season? You go, well, I don't know because they've not won the Europa League yet, so I can't tell you. If they win it, they have.
Yeah.
If they don't, they haven't. It's the same as the FA Cup. If they win the FA Cup, good season. If they finish second by playing average football, then no, they haven't. Not in my opinion, because when you look at the teams that need to get closer, and you're talking Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham. They all need funds. Chelsea to get... Hang on, very quickly. To get closer,
you don't do anything quickly.
Very quickly. For these teams to get close to Man City, they need money. So when I look at Man United, I don't think they need an awful lot of money.
I'll see this. Liverpool finished third, don't win the Champions League. They finished behind Man United. They had a good season.
Say that again?
Liverpool finished third, don't win the Champions League. Finished behind Man United. They had but people think they have.
Maybe relatively so, but maybe relatively so. Okay, so Don, you don't really think Manchester United have had a good season. You think they have. So what I'm going to flip it over now. You need to give me an argument as to why you think Manchester United have had it. What has been the positive for Jose Mourinho and Manchester United this season?
Well, they've proved in some games that they can get on the front foot and they can play. Man City game, that was the one. When you go and you play like you did in the second half, where you go shackles off, right? Go and do what you want to a certain degree. No manager would ever say that. And you go, well, how good was Pogba getting a brace?
Yeah.
How good was he? And then Pogba comes out after the game and goes, and the question was, why can't we see this more from him? Because we all know he's a player. We all know he's got top-class ability. And it was very damning in his assessment when he said, I can't do this in a 2. I need to play in a 3.
So what have they done well this season? What have they done well?
If he's that good, why can't he play in a 2?
What have they done well this season?
You need structure. It's the same when he was at Juve.
What have they done well, Manchester United, this season? In a sentence.
Probably just grinding and finishing second. But not by blowing me away.
The Premier League's best grinders. And Leroy, you think they've had a good season. Going into the 18-19 Premier League season, what have they got to do?
They've got to challenge for the Premier League title. I said, look, there's caveats with them having a good season because of what's happened before, not because of what's happened with Man City this season. But what they need to do is get closer to Man City, look like they're real challengers, because at the moment it's second going on fourth, as you said. Yeah. And next season, they have got to be the real main rivals to Man City. Because at the moment, even though they are in second, everybody thinks Liverpool are their main rivals.
Leroy, thank you very much. Don, thank you very much. That's it from the debate today. We're off shopping now, and I can assure you that Don and Leroy, this time, are going to go to different stores. We'll see you soon.